the grand ballroom at Fairmont Crest's historic Hamilton estate gleamed under a canopy of crystal chandeliers, each faceted prism scattering light like a constellation come to earth. And tonight the air was thick with expectation and whispered promises. Guests in opulent gowns and tailored tuxedos drifted through a maze of painterly frescoes and gilded columns, their identities concealed behind ornate Venetian masks that ranged from delicate lacework to sinister horned visages. At the heart of this pageantry stood Martin Richardson, the distinguished philanthropist whose booming laughter and generous smile had become synonymous with this annual masked masquerade charity gala. Unaware of the poison ticking through the building's veins, he surveyed the eager crowd from the dais a tableau vivant of civility and high society, raising his crystal flute in a toast to hope, to healing, and to the future of Fairmont Crest's Children's Hospital. But beneath his congenial veneer, a storm was gathering, one whose architect had woven her vengeance into the very ductwork that carried warmth and air to every corner of this marble-clad Eden. Vanessa McBride, the betrayed casino heiress, had spent weeks slipping silent canisters of bacteriological agents into the ventilation system, her fingertips brushing great covers as she worked under cover of darkness, her mind a crucible of rage and calculated retribution. She imagined Martin's face the moment the toxin went airborne as shock. His horror, he represented everything she'd lost when her empire collapsed, when secrets spilled and alliances fractured. Tonight, she would reclaim her vengeance in a single, devastating breath. As Martin lifted his glass, a low hiss slithered through the air vents, so faint that only the most attuned ear could discern it. Within seconds, the crystalline clarity of the ballroom atmosphere soured. A wispy, silvery mist rained down like poisonous dew, swirling at ankle height before coiling upward in pale tendrils. Laughter and clinking glasses ceased in an instant as the haze spread, its taste metallic and biting. The first to succumb were the unmasked servers pouring vintage Champagnetto fell silently to their knees, eyes rolling back as convulsions wrapped their frames. In that heartbeat, civility shattered. Martin's toast turned to a gasp of alarm. He dropped his flute as the orchestra's first tremolo faltered into dissonance. Guests clawed at their throats, frantic and bewildered, masks slipping askew to reveal panic-stricken faces. Alliances that had seemed unbreakable reeled apart in the crucible of survival. Near the orchestra platform, Andre Richardson, man of measured poise and disarming charm, sprang into action as Naomi Hawthorne, his closest confidant and the gala's keynote speaker, collapsed against a rosewood pillar, her breath shallow and rapid. Without hesitation, Andre scooped her into his arms, forging a path through the panicked throng. Each step was a gamble. One misstep could send them both crashing through the ornate parquet floor. He whispered reassurances into her ear, defiant murmurs against the tightening coils of terror, pressing a stolen doctor's pocketknife to her wrist to draw antiseptic from a hidden penlight. His calm resolve anchored Naomi's faltering pulse, giving her a fighting chance even as others succumbed around them. High above, the glass dome roof, a marvel of engineering that crowned the ballroom with sky-blue transparent cybum, a battleground for vengeance and desperation. Ashley Morgan, her evening gown torn and her mask discarded in the flurry, sprinted toward the grand staircase that led to the service mezzanine. She had spotted Vanessa near the rear vents just moments before the toxin was unleashed, her silhouette backlit by the emergency red glow of the exit sign. No rationale of compassion or diplomacy could sway Ashley now. Fueled by righteous fury and a primal instinct to protect the innocent, she surged upward, breaking through the service door and onto the glass catwalk. Beneath her, the masked guests writhed, but Ashley's gaze locked onto one figure of Vanessa, poised like a vulture, hands bruised from wrenching open vents, her eyes glittering with triumph. With a feral scream, Ashley lunged, her heel catching the rim of the glass panel and sending her sliding perilously toward the dome's apex. Beneath the thrum of her pulse and the echo of her footfalls on reinforced glass, Ashley chased Vanessa across the curved expanse, each footstep ringing like thunder in the silent tension of the skylit chamber. Below, in the midst of chaos, Jason Armstrong and Chelsea Hamilton found themselves thrust into a race against time that tested every sinew of their resolve. Drawn together by shared outrage Jason at the betrayal of the town he had sworn to expose, and Chelsea at the poison that imperiled her father and her future. They scrambled through maintenance corridors, following the twisted blueprints of the building's underbelly. Fluorescent lights flickered above as they navigated a labyrinth of service tunnels, steam pipes, and wiring conduits. Their breaths ragged from climbing utility ladders and vaulting over steel grates. Each twist brought them closer to the main diffuser chamber, the clandestine heart-pumping Vanessa's bioweapon into the ballroom like some grotesque fountain. Time was their greatest enemy. The toxin's half-life ensured that, by dawn, the concentration would reach lethal saturation, snuffing out hundreds before medical aid could arrive. Sweat slicked their skin as they burst into the diffuser control room, a windowless vault humming with fans and gauges. Jason's fingers danced over the control panel, override switches, and emergency shutoffs. Chelsea worked the heavy-duty manual valves, her leather-gloved hands straining against compromised joints. Red warning alarms flared, echoing like banshees, as the gas canisters feeding the vents hissed in protest. Above them, Ashley and Vanessa's quarrel reached its zenith atop the dome's shimmering curvature. Ashley's hand found Vanessa's arm, claws of desperation finding their purchase. Vanessa twisted, her heel punching through the condensation on the glass, her mask slipping to reveal a face pale with vengeance. With a savage twist of her shoulder, Vanessa sent Ashley sprawling toward the inner dome, where sunlight slanted through the remaining clear panels, promising salvation and peril in equal measure. Ashley's breath caught as she clawed at a structural strut, the vertigo of height warping her vision into dizzy spirals. Vanessa advanced, her lips curving in a cruel smile. "This is for my empire," she hissed. But in that moment, a burst of commotion erupted below. Martin, recovering from the initial shock, had rallied remaining staff into the service stairwell, their torches carving lines of hope through the gloom. Veronica Dupree and Smitty Smith emerged at the mezzanine landing, their faces streaked with ash and resolve. Seeing Ashley's peril, Smitty vaulted over the railing, his medical training giving him the courage to leap into danger. He caught Ashley's outstretched hand, anchoring her as she regained her footing. Together, they forced Vanessa backward, her plan unraveling as the siren wall of solidarity closed in. In the diffuser room, Jason's final override key snapped into as Chelsea yanked the emergency lever down with every ounce of her strength. A deafening roar shook the tunnel and ceased. The hiss of gas gave way to heavy silence, and the vault door slammed with hydraulic finality. For a fleeting second, the two stood panting amid the heavy metal scent of adrenaline, uncertain if they had succeeded, until the red warning light above them winked off. Dawn's faint light seeped through the narrow vents, promising the end of night's horrors. Back in the ballroom, the toxic pall began to lift as high-powered scrubbers engaged, siphoning the last vestiges of the deadly mist. Guests who had collapsed stirred, coughing but alive, their terrors transmuting into tears of relief. Martin rushed to Ashley's side as she and Smitty descended the glass dome ramp, unsteady but alive, and without a word he enfolded both of them in urgent embraces. Andre and Naomi emerged together, their shoulders draped with blankets, their bond forged anew in the crucible of near-death. Chelsea and Jason followed, grime-streaked and exhausted, their eyes meeting in a moment of silent acknowledgement. Whatever lay beyond this night, they had prevailed. Vanessa, her mask fallen at her feet, was led away in cuffs by Vernon Dupree's face, a mask of sorrow and betrayal, while she cast one last defiant glance at the escaping sunrise. As the final guests trickled out into the golden dawn, the Hamilton estate lay scarred but unbroken, its marble floors smeared with the residue of catastrophe and courage. In the hush that followed the storm, Martin Richardson reclaimed the days one last time, his voice steady as he addressed the shaken survivors. He spoke not of bombs or betrayals, but of the indomitable spirit that had carried them through darkness. And as the first rays of morning illuminated the cresting hills beyond, Fairmont Crest stood testament to the truth that when alliances are forged in fire and fear, they emerged tempered into an unbreakable bondoni that would see them through whatever gates, literal or figurative, still loomed on the horizon. In the aftermath of the masked masquerade's near catastrophe, Fairmont Crest reeled under a haze of shock and suspicion. Yet life, merciless and insistent, pushed everyone forward into the next chapter of their upheaval. Martin Richardson, once the unflappable host of glittering charity galas, now found himself drifting through sleepless nights in his study. Clutching a half-empty glass of scotch as he replayed Ashley's terrified face on the glass dome, the hiss of the toxin, the thunder of bodies colliding in panic. Guilt gnawed at him had he failed as protector of this town. And he resolved to throw himself into a private investigation, poring over every maintenance log, every vendor invoice, desperate to piece together the chain of custody that let Vanessa McBride infiltrate his beloved estate's air system. His partnership with Smitty Smith, once merely cordial, hardened into a determined alliance. Late-night strategy sessions over hospital coffee, where Martin, still shaken by Naomi's near-death, demanded to know how the toxin was formulated, who supplied the canisters, and how deeply Byeond the Gates had burrowed into the town's infrastructure. Meanwhile, at Fairmont Crest General Hospital, Dr. Madison Montgomery's clandestine network lay in ruins. The public outcry over her bioweapon trials had detonated faster than any bomb, forcing the hospital board to freeze all investigational protocols and launch an external review. Nurses whispered in corridors as Madison's office was stripped bare as certificates snatched from walls, patient files seized by investigators, though she had slipped away during the chaos of the gala. Rumors spread that she'd fled town under cover of darkness, a specter of scientific hubris fleeing the wreckage she'd wrought. In her absence, the hospital struggled to reclaim its reputation. Veteran surgeons led free health clinics in Martin's stead, and Naomi, once her closest colleague, volunteered to spearhead community outreach programs, her every appearance a testament to healing and transparency. Yet behind her calm facade, Naomi battled a growing terror that Byeond the Gates was not extinguished with Vanessa's arrest. Each day brought new evidence of shell companies and untraceable wire transfers, and she feared the conspiracy would resurface in a more insidious form. On the political front, Jason Armstrong seized the moment to thrust Byeond the Gates into the national spotlight. As Exposed series, Hell in the Air, ran on primetime news, detailing the corporate ties between the test kit suppliers, the hospital's board members, and an offshore research consortium. Chelsea Hamilton, initially horrified that Jason had broadcast intimate details of her father's treatment, found herself standing by his side at a hastily convened press conference in the hospital atrium, where she delivered a stirring plea for reform in clinical ethics. Her voice trembled with emotion as she recounted the terror that had nearly claimed her family and the bravery of the first responders who had saved hundreds, including Vanessa's would-be victims. The duo's partnership, defined by clandestine corridor meetings, solidified into a bond of mutual respect and trust, each leveraging the other's strengths. Jason's dogged investigative instincts and Chelsea's heartfelt advocacy. Their campaign led to the introduction of new county ordinances mandating strict oversight of experimental treatments and sealing the fate of any future unauthorized trials. Elsewhere, Andre Richardson and Naomi Hawthorne embarked on a more personal journey of recovery. They co-founded a nonprofit dedicated to survivors of bioterror attacks, running group therapy sessions in the very ballroom that had been the site of tragedy. Every week, they led small circles of former patients and frightened townspeople, guiding them through breathing exercises and trust-building games beneath the same frescoed ceilings where bodies had once convulsed in poison. Their work drew the community closer, forging unlikely friendships. Derek Baldwin, nursing his own heartbreak after losing Ashley to her single-minded pursuit of justice, volunteered as a support group facilitator. Donnie Dupree, seeking redemption for her covert role in the hospital's cover-ups, offered her marketing expertise to publicize their services. Even Vanessa McBride, now incarcerated in a high-security wing, sent letters of apology and insight, confessing the depth of her rage and begging forgiveness from those she had harmed. Yet as the town's surface tensions began to ease, a new darkness slithered in. The morning after the gala, a maintenance worker discovered a secondary payload hidden in a sealed HVAC shaft, an accelerant poised to reactivate the biofog dispersal at the flick of a remote switch. Panic rippled through law enforcement and hospital security as Martin and Smitty convened with the district attorney and state health officials in an emergency command center. The device, though inert, carried markings that matched those on Vanessa's original canisters, suggesting that Byeond the Gates had not been toppled with her arrest, but had deep cover collaborators ready to finish what she'd started. Martin pressed for a full lockdown, but Smitty, recalling the hospital's strained resources and the community's newfound faith in recovery, argued for a surgical strike, assembling a team of bomb techs, epidemiologists, and structural engineers to neutralize the threat without paralyzing the entire town. Their plan hinged on pinpointing the remote detonator's signal frequency, a high-wire operation that would require Jason's hacking skills and Chelsea's intimate knowledge of the estate's overlooked schematics. As dusk fell over Fairmont Crest, the makeshift task force gathered beneath the looming silhouette of the Hamilton estate, its many turrets now ominous watchtowers under an indigo sky. Martin, clad in a protective suit, stepped onto the parched grass with Smitty and Jason flanking him. Chelsea stood nearby, binoculars trained on the satellite dish atop the caretaker's cottage, from which the remote signal was likely broadcast. In that moment, each person carried the weight of the town's survival. Martin his unshakable faith in community, Smitty his unwavering commitment to truth, Jason his courage to fight unseen battles, and Chelsea her promise to protect her family at any cost. Inside the cottage, a lone figure hunched over a console of Vernon Dupree, the man who had once believed he could expose the network through the hospital's financial records, now revealed as the sleeper agent programmed to finish Vanessa's vendetta. His eyes, wild with fanaticism, flicked to a timer counting down the seconds until reactivation. But before he could flip the final switch, Jason's deft fingers sent a virus coursing through the network, disabling the transmitter. Simultaneously, Smitty and Martin burst through the door, tackling Vernon to the floor as Chelsea smashed the canister storage box with a crowbar. The signal abruptly died, and Vernon's screams echoed off the cottage walls as he thrashed beneath their combined weight. With the threat neutralized, dawn's first light gilded the horizon as the community emerged from its vigil, blinking in the early sun. No alarms sounded, no toxic mist rose, just the quiet hum of lives determined to go on. In the days that followed, Fairmont Crest honored its fallen heroes with a memorial planted in the hospital's healing garden, a circle of 12 oak saplings, one for each innocent life imperiled by the bioweapon, their roots intertwined like the bonds newly forged in tragedy. Vanessa McBride was sentenced to life for her crimes. Her icy composure thawed at the last when Ashley, standing in the court's gallery, clasped her gloved hand around the bars and whispered, "I forgive you, but this town never will, Doctor." Madison Montgomery was extradited to stand trial for bioterrorism, her legacy forever stained by the ambition that had blinded her to humanity. And at the heart of it all, the Hamilton family reclaimed their place as pillars of a community reborn, Bill Hamilton, renewed by his treatment yet haunted by its origins, dedicated his fortunes to funding ethical research. Chelsea and Jason, partners in love and justice, transformed Hell in the Air into a best-selling book. Martin Richardson resumed hosting fundraisers, this time in open fields under canvas tents, where every breath was a tribute to vigilance and every mask laid aside in gratitude for the air that bound them together. Beyond the gates of that ordeal lay no simple closure, for the shadows of conspiracy would forever linger, but Fairmont Crest had proven itself unbreakable, its people fierce in hope. As they stepped forward into the uneasy dawn of a world forever altered by the thin line between science and salvation,